Namaste. Psychoanalysis and philosophy, constitution and design. Constitution of oneself, an element of suprahuman design of constitution and life, is an area which no one wants to talk or touch about in psychoanalysis. It's surprising in me. Let us explore this rare, difficult, and mostly avoided area with our psychoanalysis consultant, Mr. Himanshu White. Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
So can we start with these two words, constitution and design, in context of psychoanalysis?
The word constitution refers to the inborn characteristics we have in terms of our hardware and software, characteristics which are changeable or unchangeable, characteristics which predispose us to give a unique kind of response to a unit stimulus. In psychoanalysis, we talk about the constitution and environment. And in the environment, we have family factors and the social factors. And inside of us, we have the constitution. For example, two children of the same age have their mother leaving them for 2 days. Let us say both of them are 6 months old. One of them develops this whole complex of abandonment and consequential pathology. And the other child overcomes it, does not develop it. So here we say the constitution is at work. Similarly, a client would say, if the person has too much of constitutional aggression, no amount of good mothering can hold the person and the split will still remain open. So this is what we refer to as constitution in psychoanalysis. Design refers to the fact whether the constitution as it is because of a purpose set up by a suprahuman entity, or it is just outcome of an accident or something we don't know, but there's nothing suprahuman about it. There is nothing ontologically celestial about it. So design refers to whether the constitution we have is a part of a larger design. Is there a design for the purpose of human life and purpose of existence? Or is our constitution just an accident? So design brings in the element of the suprahuman entities, suprahuman forces, suprahuman design of the terrestrial processes on earth and of human life and of universe. So the two get together because the moment you put the question, why is my constitution what it is? The only two answers science can give is, the first answer is we don't know, second answer is it's just an accident. It is just the way it is because of some laws of nature, including maybe the chaos in nature. But the current scientific mood and orientation doesn't go into leave alone accepting, but doesn't even explore the possibility of a suprahuman design behind human existence.
Sir, you mean to say it is not even genetic? Or to some extent it is?
It would be. It would be. Constitution would have a genetic element to it, no doubt about it. But when you look at the whole of the constitution, the scientific answer we get is we don't know, or it's just an accident. So if we put the question that if my constitution is outcome of my parents' constitution, then why is their constitution what it was? and the question goes backwards. And the question will end at a point where the question of design or no design inevitably will come in. Because the moment you conceptualize the concept of constitution, the concept of design cannot be far away. Both are related to each other. We have to answer questions about design the moment we answer questions about the constitution. And that is where in the Western civilization, after the Greek period, there is a ontological terror on the question of design. Whether that question is dealt with in philosophy or pure sciences, physical sciences, or in psychology. There is an ontological terror of the concept of design because of certain very deep-rooted characteristics of the Western mind. And this is where the difficulty also comes in, that in sciences or even in psychoanalysis, we don't have adequate attention on constitution and on design and the linkages between the two and how this constellation can affect the working of the mind, pathogenesis or healing.
So, sir, then what would be the main reason of this idea not explored in psychoanalysis since last so many years? You know, when we know it is so important.
First reason is there is an ontological terror of the concept of design. The terror is because it may lead to the concept of God, or it may lead to the concept of determination by laws of nature. And both of them are such propositions against which the Western mind, which is the mind of an individual isolated from existence and completely devoted to self-interest and hedonism and conquest of nature, this mind rebels against it. Because if we accept that there is a suprahuman design, that it's natural for us to get into a congruence with that design. And this harmony with that design is something which will not go well with the mind which is isolated, oriented on self-interest, hedonism, and conquest. So this is the first part of it. The second part is there is politics behind it. Because if you accept the argument of design, then you can argue that certain groups of people are not intelligent or not prosperous or not well educated or cannot govern their countries well because something is wrong in the constitution. And this can easily get into a racial belief. So this is the second element of it, why the element of constitution is not taken up by people, the politics behind the concept. The third is related to the model of the mind. That if you accept the element of design and constitution, your model of the mind has to incorporate both, and then it cannot be a pure psychological model of the mind. It will involve spirituality and philosophy. And that complexity, the psychoanalytic thinkers find it too difficult to really manage. So their models of the mind essentially are closed systems of a very narrow focus. And this will open up the doors to philosophy and spirituality. So there is this intellectual difficulty and inability to really engage with this part. The same goes into pathogenesis and healing. Because once you get philosophy and spirituality into the model of the mind, because of the element of suprahuman design, then it has a natural consequence on pathogenesis and healing. And also on the purpose element of psychotherapy and of human life. And that is another difficulty which is very difficult for people to deal with, and therefore they don't really engage with it. The Next element is about investigating constitution itself. How do we reconstruct the constitution of what we call constitution? And that's a very difficult thing to do, because that will need a very different kind of model of the mind, far more elemental than the kinds of aggregate models of the mind we have had till now in psychoanalysis. So that is another difficulty. Spirituality would come into psychoanalysis if you accept this kind of arguments. And that is a very difficult thing, because most psychoanalytically oriented thinkers are fanatically materialists. So they don't only believe, they fanatically believe in materialism, and therefore it's a blasphemy for them to really engage with, accept and engage with spirituality. However, there have been exceptions in psychoanalysis, and those who were trained in psychoanalysis but went outside of it. And we have uh, people like Carl Jung and Erik Erikson who do talk about the design of human life. They don't go to the extent of linking it to suprahuman element, but they do talk about design of human life in terms of stages of human life. So for Jung, uh, there was an element of design, and for Erik Erikson there was an element of design, and for Maslow to some extent there was an element of design. So there have been thinkers within psychoanalytic tradition and outside of it within the Western sphere who did engage uh, with constitution and design, but with great hesitation and not in a very deep way, except for Jung and Erikson, I would say.
So, sir, is contemporary research helping us comprehend these concepts better, or it was only the, or not?
Contemporary research is helping us uh, in understanding the ideas of constitution and design better. And what we are seeing here are certain types of researches which are there. I am referring to research which is related to transgenerational trauma, research related to reincarnation, research related to exploration of states of mind under hallucinogenic impact, parapsychology research, and researches in spirituality and issues of out of body experience, afterlife, and so on. So these issues uh, are helping us to understand the idea of constitution and design better. And what is coming out of this research is there seems to be some design of the universe and of human life, and there seems to be the constitution related to the design, where possibly we will be looking at many lives and constitution of each life, partly carrying on the constitution from behind in a small way and largely being customized to the new purposes of of the new existence. So this is what is coming out broadly out of it, but we are still in very nascent stages to really conclude. But in terms of light coming from those areas, definitely yes.
So, sir, exactly, I mean, precisely what is the difficulty in exploring this concept of constitution?
Uh, the difficulty is, first you will have to get into a new model of the mind. Because the moment you talk about constitution, the first question that will come up is, what is the constitution of this constitution? Because when we say constitution, it's a good way of saying I don't know. You are replacing one unknown by another. So it will naturally lead to the inquiry into the constitution of the constitution. And there you will need a very structural model of the mind, which you build up from elementals of the mind. And this is almost like doing in specifics in context of psychoanalysis, what Wittgenstein did in his Tractatus in a more generalized form. And this enterprise is intellectually very difficult. So this is the first difficulty in exploring the concept of constitution. Second difficulty is, for the last few decades, there is a wave of post-structuralism. And post-structuralism as a wave does not go very friendly with the idea of constitution, which is a structural concept. So the wave of post-structuralism is more friendly to a flexible system which is unstructured and responding to the environment and to itself, rather than a structure which has a sort of a fixed hardware, even if it's an open and flexible hardware, responding to the environment and to system stimulus itself. So the post-structural wave is second. Third is, can something be done about it? I have created a model of the mind where you can go slightly deeper into the constitution of the constitution and create a more elemental model of the mind. This is the third. And fourth, there is a general attack from the community which comes in the form of neglect or criticism. Take for example, what happened to Jung. Jung did elaborate on the concept of design or of constitution and design. So for Jung, the constitution was out of design and the design was embedded in the self. Jung would often say the blueprint of the tree is contained in the seed.
Okay.
And therefore, there is a constitution which is unfolding over the program of life. So Jung did talk about constitution because he talked about types, personality types, and personality types is one aggregate manifestation of what we call constitution. So personality types cannot happen unless you believe in constitution. And design of life and design element is there because Jung talks about the program of life. And the design as a blueprint is embedded in the self. And corresponding to that, the self creates the constitution, which is the archetypal constellation. So Jung did talk about it, and Jung was just one step short of connecting the self to something suprahuman. Because that would be a bridge between psychoanalysis and philosophy or spirituality. But Jung stopped there. And therefore, Jung's model of the mind does have elements of both constitution and design. The archetypal constitution and the design embedded in the self, of which the constitution is a expression or a instrumentality. But Jung stops short of connecting the self to something suprahuman. So that is where Jung did not take a leap like Hegel or Marx or Shankara or anybody else or Krishna. Jung stopped short there. So you have this, that even when Jung stopped short there, the psychoanalytic community never took it in a very friendly way. And that is a third element, that you get so pounced upon and attacked by people for taking up this issue seriously, exploring these issues, that most people don't want to deal with.
So, sir, how does this concept of constitution get used in psychoanalysis? And so much resistance to design is also there in psychoanalysis. So why so?
The word constitution is used in psychoanalysis as another way of saying I don't know. So when we have a question for which we don't have a conceptual answer, right? Sometimes we are honest and we say I don't know, and sometimes we use the word constitution if it's referring to some very early phenomena. So that is one part of it. Second part of it is dealt with based upon how we are engaging with the constitution. For example, if we are looking at hypersensitivity, then it would be to make the person observe it, understand it, have insight, and slowly modify over a period of time, whatever extent he can. If it is owing to innate high aggression, then the question would be of sublimation and using higher defenses. If it has to do with something like extreme liking for pleasure, then one has to get into a process of understanding and accepting to let it go and mourn what is lost. So these are some of the ways in which constitution or manifestations of constitution are dealt with in psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, and the resistance to design. It is dealt with in two ways. One, people who have high resistance to design just use the word constitution and stop there. They don't go into the constitution of constitution or the purpose of constitution or a higher design. They don't go there. But some people take up the idea of design in a better, more positive way. For example, those who take to logotherapy or are into human potential movement, or those who want to use superego strength. You normally talk about superego pathology, but there's also something called superego strength. And that superego strength can be used when you give purpose. CBT uses it in the form of giving a positive goal. And similarly, you can also derive a moral, you can give a moral goal and derive the moral strength out of it. So those who want to mobilize this superego strength, the strength of purpose, the strength of positive goal, the the strength of looking at inevitability of life in for reality acceptance. Those are the areas where the concept of design is positively used in psychoanalytic psychotherapy or therapy informed with psychoanalysis.
So, sir, does any integration of spirituality help in this particular concept?
Answer is yes, but will it happen? The answer probably is no. Because spirituality has lot to say on the element of constitution and design both. Obviously, what they are saying is not empirically testable. So it is in the area of belief, or it is in the area of rare experience. Even when somebody is saying something with existential experience, it is still a rare experience which cannot be replicated under ordinary research conditions. So the integration will definitely help and enrich, but is it practically feasible? The answer more seems like a no. The in-between possibilities come from areas of hallucinogenic research, transgenerational research, and parapsychological research. I believe that in these areas, quite an amount of empirical work has happened. And now with the new age techniques of holistic healing getting popular and having more empirical investigation to back them up, certain parts of spirituality with empirical backing, say for example, meditation. Meditation, after so much of investigation, today is a part of allopathy. It is no longer a part of holistic healing because it's so empirically understood. So similarly, areas of spirituality can definitely be taken up related to constitution and design, and whatever tools that helps us with can be empirically tested and brought in. This is more a situation of what should be rather than what can be.
So then, sir, how do you see these concepts evolving in future, if not spiritually, and with so much hitches in psychoanalysis?
Because I think the first thing will be that the moment we get into this, we can easily see that we need different models of the mind. The existing ones can't explain constitution and design. That is one. So from psychological models, we'll be moving to psychophilosophical models. That is one. Two, the limits of human potential will have to be reworked if we bring these elements in. Third, we will have to get closer to reincarnation research, hallucinogenic research, transgenerational, parapsychological. That is something that I think will happen because these areas are coming out with very strong studies. And lastly, uh, once we focus on them, we will develop certain tools to deal with problems coming out of these two areas. Because this is the key, that if we accept these concepts and bring them in, then how do you put them to application? So you put them to application for healing and self-development. Self-development, let us say, is more spiritual. But what about the psychoanalytic psychotherapy space of healing? So there we will have to create far more tools, new basket full of tools to address these issues. And that will happen only after these issues are accepted, brought in, and worked on far more deeply.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much. And as always, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.